Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today we're going to be doing some trend lines. We're going to give you some ideas on how to draw trend lines on your charts and essentially how potentially you could use that with the AltTrader Indicator. So as always, if you could like, subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let's get into that video. Okay, so we're on the dot chart, dot tether US perpetual contract, futures contracts for Binance. We are just going to look at a few different coins and pairs so we can kind of get an idea on how to draw lines and essentially kind of figure out whether or not there's an uptrend or if there's a downtrend, and even potentially how you can kind of create areas of value within your trend lines. So if we look at the dot chart at the moment, we're on the day. This will also be something that you'd need to take into account. So if you're trading on the 15-minute chart, then look at the chart over 15 minutes. Get rid of that. So these things are, again, you want to be looking for those kind of trends. So we're on the 15-minute chart, so we'll just start here for the sake of it. So what you want to be looking for with your trend line is as many touches on that line as you can get. And this can kind of validate the trend line and give you kind of confidence in where the market is heading. So for instance, let's look at this 15-minute chart for the polka dot. We could essentially, if we wanted to, start here. There's a touch there and there's some touch here. So what we want to be looking for as well is swing highs and swing lows. So essentially there's a swing low, swing high, let's say, another swing low here, and we probably have a swing low here, and maybe a swing low here, swing high there, swing high, swing low. So let me just make this smaller. And what else you can do is to kind of give yourself an area in which maybe you want to trade or you don't want to trade within, is you can copy it, so Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, and paste that out, and you could use this as a second area. So let's say we want to start from here and we see touch there, or even maybe here. Just move that there a bit. So in this area, what we can see is whether or not there is anything happening. So if we start down here, it hit here and it broke through and it kind of sat there, and then here we can see it's almost some sort of support. It hits this trend line again, bounces off there, continues to go up, stays above that area line. Now we're in that same process here, so it's broken through, but it touched the trend line, it's hit this line here, again back to the trend line, and eventually it's broken through. So in this case, what you could think is, looking back over this history, are we going to see another kind of situation like this, so where there's a lot of time above that line? And again, this could now see a potential move on the uptrend again. You would alter your trend lines accordingly. So at this stage now, we're above this area in terms of, let's say we hit here and essentially bounce back off here, or as soon as it hits this line here, that could be potential for you to go for a long and see that kind of work its way back up to this area here, and maybe you'd sell at this point. So there's that. Let's just try Bitcoin. Okay, so again, another example here. We could say, let's start at this point, or even here. We could say that this, and this before all of this here happened, that this would have been your trend line. So if anything, we would see it around about here. So there's three touches, 1, 2, 3, and then obviously on this one it broke through. So what we could see, or what we could be seeing, is a potential downtrend. So this is now invalidated. We don't need this anymore. But as you can imagine, if we would have been around about here, and you would have drawn your trend line, say from here to here, and we continued that, if we see here in this area that once it touches this, we went for a long as it's hit the trend line, and you can see here that the increase from that point would have been anywhere from 4%, 9, 11, even as high as 12. And obviously on this one, we could potentially say, once we see some sideways action, maybe we sell at this point and we wait for it to kind of come close to this trend line. At this point, maybe we go for a long again, and that's another 4% there. And here, as you can see, the situation being that it broke through this trend line. So at this point, it's no longer valid. So we'd get rid of this, and you can also do this the other way. So let's say now what we're seeing is, again, this is on the 15 minute. So we could draw anything from this kind of situation here. So if once it kind of broke through that trend line, maybe we draw the first one here, and then the second one hits. Okay, so then we'd spread that out from the second one, and what we would be looking at is something like this. So if it touches this line, then we maybe start to look for sells. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas of selling potential. Even when it hits this point and comes through, it still breaks down and comes here. Finally, it breaks through. So what we could either do is look at it from this perspective, where we're still seeing a downtrend. This could be an area of some kind of resistance. So let's zoom in and have a closer look. So you can see, let's just bring that down there and about there. So now anytime it's touching here, we're seeing some retracement. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, what we could now potentially be looking at is a downtrend for Bitcoin. Another angle for this is there an uptrend? Do we see an uptrend? So let's say we start about here. It's a swing low, another swing low, and now what we could see is, if this line is still valid as it is right now, and we continue to kind of move in this direction to this trend line, then what we could see is a potential buy here. So again, the point of following that initial trend line which we had, which was valid up till here, and it broke through, the same has happened. We've had an increase, it broke through and came back down, touched this trend line, and then there's a huge long there for you to take. So now what we could be seeing is something along the lines of maybe some sideways action, or a further retracement down to the trend line, in which here, or maybe at this point, we decide to place a long, and that's another angle for you to take. So that's one area as well. If we look at Ethereum, okay, so we're on the 15 minute again. Let's move on to the hour. Let's kind of work from the hour. So here's another example here. So what do we see? We've got one point here. This was a swing low. So let's work from this point and drag that across about here. So again, here's another uptrend. And what we also can do, as I said before, of copying this, so command or control C, then command control V, and we can draw a kind of similar channel in terms of where this could be heading. So what we might see here is something like this. So this now becomes an area of value, where what we could be looking for is, we're okay up till around about here, where we may see some resistance, and it may retrace down to this trend line, And again, what we tend to find maybe is something like this, maybe breaks through, something along those lines. Obviously now what we set at 3,384. This is a very simple process for you to do. Don't go crazy with the trend lines. Try and just see one hitting as many points as possible. It's not exactly, I mean, if you start doing, I mean, we're on the day now, on the hour, so if we were drawing like, okay, there's one here to here, and then there's one here to here, also there's one here, and technically what we saw is something like this. It just starts to become messy and you can't really understand, and it'll stop you from your trading essentially. Like you just won't get anything. So always renew your trend lines where you see things heading, and that way it allows you to kind of make a decision on that. Now we're on the hour at the moment, so let me just bring up the Ethereum on the 15-minute chart, and as you can see, there are a few areas in which we could potentially look for a sell. So how would we do that? So at one point we would draw our trend line as such. Maybe we go for aggressive as an example, just to kind of show you guys what we mean here. And the same thing, so let's copy this and bring the points of reference here. So again, this part here would just be an example. So we draw a trend line, and what we could say is any key area that starts to move towards this trend line and a long position has flagged up, we look to take it. So for instance, long here, obviously that played out well. There's a short here that played out well. This long played out well. This short was okay. This long played out well. This short was okay. But then we see here there's another short and a long. That's fine. But this area here, potentially you may even jump in here. But with it being so high compared to the previous longs, you might not go for that one. You may jump on the short and ride that down till here, which would have been perfect. The next long that came in, the same thing. We're getting close to the trend line, so highly likely you'd take this long, and same with the short as well. And then this long is has played out really well as well. So we can see here that when this came through, this gave you currently a 5% move, and this is on the 15-minute chart. So let's say, for example, we change some of the settings here. So conservative, power 100. Okay. And you can see again how we can draw trend lines on any chart that we want to test. And here's another example. So 15-minute chart, we've got these set up now. Let's draw our trend line. Let's say about that. Okay, so realistically what we're seeing now is a upward trend, bit of sideways action coming now. However, what we can do is say this area here has a few touch points, and anytime it comes within this zone, it can't break through. So what we might see now, I mean, this long is around about here, came in, so this long gave us a position of up to 25% move in a day. So let's just look, 4th of May 9 AM, 5th of May 7:30. So you could have essentially drawn, let's say we're working from this area here and you came into this long, maybe this would be a point that you'd sell in case it breaks through this line, or you may want to sell and see kind of whether or not in the next candle it stays above, in which case you could jump in here, ride it up to this point, 10% move in 2 hours. And this works both ways, whether there's an upward trend or a downward trend. So we'll just turn this off, because essentially this is more focused on your analysis on just doing this very basic and kind of seeing where the market's heading, or what's going on in the news. Is that going to affect the trend lines that you've drawn as well? So we'll do one more. Let's do Cardano. What can we see happening today? So let's use this as our trend line, and now we can see where we see this heading. If we go to the daily chart and get an idea on where we're heading now, so let's see. Well, let's start around about here, or maybe even here. Yeah, so let's start around about there. Move this to here. So again, we can already see the upward trend. It came down, bounced off this trend line. So where could we see this heading now? Well, again, if this is on, you're working on a daily chart, and let's just move that, then potentially we might see something along the lines of a continuous higher high, lower high, higher high, lower high, like so. And again, the trend line would be adjusted for that as well. And we could also potentially see something where it heads down, comes off, creates a higher high, comes down, creates a lower high, another higher high, and so on like that. So at this point, what we would be looking for is key areas for us to essentially decide where we're going to put our trades. And that is pretty much it. I don't really want to go too much into it. It's a very straightforward process. If you complicate it, then obviously it'll stop you from making trades. And like I said, figure out what works for you. But essentially, trend lines are a very simple, straightforward process, and you'll see it with your own eyes in terms of where are the key, an area of where there's the most touch points. So we've got 2 touch points here, and what we've noticed is this kind of validates this line by bouncing off of it and continuing to rise up. However, we got a lower low here. So again, lower high, sorry. So what we might think on this is that, well, there was pretty much the same, but if we count this, then there was a lower low, and now there's a lower high. So either it's going to continue down here, or we'll see more sideways action. But either way, what we want to see now is this: if this touches this line, is it going to validate it, and we're going to see another move that potentially is an upward trend, so that it continues along this line, and maybe we see a breakthrough as well in terms of pricing. So that is our trend line analysis, or tutorial, let's say, sorry, on how to draw simple trend lines and just kind of give you an idea of where you want to be trading. Like I said, we have now an updated version of the AltTrader Indicator. There are a lot more features. We'll probably do an updated version for showing you guys how to use it, how you can change the styles and take profits, and what you can see in terms of whether or not how the predefined power settings work. So safe, conservative, aggressive, manual. Click on manual. This will allow you to essentially change how aggressive you want to be. So click on that and you can see this changes automatically. So that is Trendline and our Trendline tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, leave comments in the sections below or reach us on Telegram. And if you are looking for the AltTrader Indicator, then go to our website, AltSignals.io, and you can get a subscription for the AltTrader Indicator, as well as we offer Forex signals, and we also offer Binance Futures signals as well. And as always, if you could just give us a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and you should be able to see now a video from our last video, and it'd be great for you to watch that as well. So take care, guys.